Imagine you're holding, like, a fantasy novel.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's this epic filled with magical swords, eight-headed dragons, and divine stripteases.
Naturally.
But then, right in the middle of reading about a god throwing a flayed horse through a roof, which we will get to, you realize you aren't reading a fantasy novel at all.
No, not at all.
You're actually reading an incredibly shrewd, legally binding property deed.
It's kind of wild to think about it that way.
It really is. And to understand how a mythological story became a weapon of political control, we are looking at Japan's Kojiki. Today's stack of sources includes a profound historical analysis of Japanese mythology, an unabridged reading of the Kojiki's first volume, which gets wonderfully weird, and a modern comedic take on its cultural impact.
A really great mix of perspectives.
Exactly. Our mission for you today is to discover how a text overflowing with, cosmic chaos is actually one of history's most calculated pieces of political propaganda.
Yeah, and to really grasp the scale of what we're analyzing, we have to travel back to the year 712 AD.
Right.
So the Kojiki, which translates to the Records of Ancient Matters, was commissioned directly by the Japanese imperial court.
By a scribe, right.
Yes, it was compiled by a scribe named Ono Yasumaro, and he transcribed it from the memorized oral histories of a retainer named Hida no R.
Memorize, that's a lot of pressure.
It is, and the context here is absolutely vital. For modern readers, this reads like a Japanese mythological fantasy, but for the 8th century Japanese court, this was unquestionable official state history.
Wow.
It was the literal legal bedrock of their entire civilization.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to figure out how the imperial court weaponized these stories, we have to see the foundation they built.
Right, the ground floor.
Exactly.
Right.
And that starts with the creation myth. In our unabridged reading of Volume 1, the universe basically begins with this brother and sister deity duo, Izanagi and Izanami.
Right, and they are standing on the floating bridge of heaven, gazing down at the chaotic, unformed earth.
This ocean.
Yeah, basically brine. The older gods give them a jeweled spear, which they dip into the ocean below. They stir it until it thickens, and as they lift the spear, the drips coalesce to form the very first island, Onagoro.
Okay.
And then they descend to this island with a very specific mandate from the older gods to procreate and populate the world.
And the comedic source we reviewed points out how incredibly awkward this courtship is.
Oh, it's so awkward.
Izanagi looks at his sister and basically points out that their anatomies have complementary physical differences.
A very clinical way to put it.
Right. He suggests they merge them. So they decide to formalize this by walking in opposite directions around a heavenly pillar, but then a very specific error occurs during this ritual.
Right. As they cross paths, Izanami, the female deity, speaks first.
She just compliments him, right?
Yeah, she compliments his appearance. Izanagi replies, and they consummate the marriage.
Yeah.
But the offspring they produce is an absolute disaster.
The leech child.
Exactly. The text literally calls it a leech child, born without bones or limbs. They place it in a reed boat and just abandon it to the sea.
Which is brutal.
It is. Desperate, they return to heaven to ask the older gods why their creation failed. The gods consult their divination rituals and deliver a completely clear verdict.
Which is?
The failure happened because the woman spoke first. The natural order was inverted.
I want to stop right there because this reads like a bizarre terms of service agreement, just like hidden inside a creation myth.
That's a great way to put it.
They are told to go back, repeat the pillar ritual, and this time the man must speak first. They do exactly that, and suddenly they successfully give birth to the Japanese islands and a whole host of nature deities.
Right.
So I have to ask, is this just ancient storytelling reflecting a patriarchal society, or is something more calculated happening here?
What's fascinating here is the deliberate social engineering at play. The historical analysis source dives really deep into this. The compilers of the Kojiki in 8th century Japan were actively solidifying a centralized patriarchal state.
Right.
By hardwiring the male speaks first rule into the literal genesis of the islands, they weren't just telling a story, they were setting a divine legal precedent.
Because if the universe broke when a woman spoke first?
Exactly. If the very creation of the world failed because a woman took the initiative, it delegitimizes any female claims to political agency or, rival matriarchal power structures in the real world.
It strips away their authority at a cosmic level. And again, we're just reporting what the sources analyze here about their political tactics, but that is a massive power play.
Oh, entirely.
They drafted a mythology that makes female submission a requirement for the universe to even function properly. But the drama of this divine couple gets significantly darker.
It really does.
After birthing the islands, Izanami gives birth to the fire god, suffers horrific burns, and dies. She descends to Yomi, the underworld.
And Izanagi, who is just overwhelmed by grief, follows her down into the darkness to bring her back.
Like Orpheus.
Very similar, yeah. He finds her outside the hall of the underworld, where she tells him she will go ask the gods of Yomi for permission to leave. But she gives him one absolute condition.
Don't look.
Right. He must not look at her while she negotiates.
Which means, naturally, he's absolutely going to look.
Of course he is.
In the unabridged reading, the tension builds. He lights a tooth of his comb like a torch, and he steps inside. And I was expecting a sad, sort of ghostly reunion, but the text goes full body horror.
It is entirely grotesque. He finds her rotting. Her body is swarming with maggots, and 8 terrifying thunder deities have been born out of her decaying flesh.
It's awful.
Izanagi is repulsed and immediately flees. Izanami, who is deeply humiliated that he saw her in this state, just flies into a rage. She sends the hags of the underworld and later an entire army to hunt him down.
And the chase sequence is, it's pure adrenaline. He's throwing his headdress, and it literally turns into grapes to, slow the hags down.
Yeah, a very creative escape.
He throws his comb, and it bursts into bamboo shoots. He barely escapes, finally rolling a massive boulder to block the entrance to the underworld. And then they stand on opposite sides of this rock, finalizing what has to be the most extreme divorce settlement in history.
It really is. She screams a curse through the stone. To avenge her shame, she vows to strangle to death 1,000 of his people every single day.
Wow.
But Izanagi does not back down. He counters, stating that if she kills 1,000, he will build 1,500 birthing houses every day.
And just like that, they invent human mortality.
Exactly.
But look at the numbers. He doesn't say he'll build 1,000 birthing houses to break even. He says 1,500.
Right, and this raises an important question about the purpose of this specific mathematical exchange.
Okay.
The authors of the Kojiki are using a terrifying underworld escape to establish a functional, state-approved logic for life and death.
Ah.
The ratio of 1,000 deaths to 1,500 births mathematically guarantees a net positive population growth.
So it's basically propaganda for having kids.
Yes. The myth reassures the people that despite the existence of death, humanity is divinely mandated to flourish, expand, and grow the labor force of the Yamato state.
It's literally population control math wrapped up in a horror story.
It really is.
So we have the islands, we have patriarchy, and we have the human life cycle established. But to get to the actual imperial court, we need rulers. Izanagi, covered in the filth of the underworld, goes to a river to purify himself.
And this purification ritual gives birth to the 3 most significant deities in the Shinto pantheon.
Right.
When he washes his left eye, Amaterasu, the sun goddess, is born. Washing his right eye produces Tsukuyomi, the moon god. And finally, washing his nose brings forth Susanoo, the god of storms and the sea.
What an entrance.
Yeah, Izanagi divides the world among them, giving Amaterasu the heavens and Susanoo the oceans.
But Susanoo does not handle his new management position well.
Not at all.
Instead of ruling the sea, he sits around weeping because he misses his mother, which makes no sense since he was literally sneezed out of his father's nose.
The logic is a bit flawed there, yeah.
Yeah, and his crying is so intense it dries up rivers and causes mountains to wither. Izanagi gets fed up and banishes him. But before Susanoo leaves, he goes to heaven to say goodbye to his sister, Amaterasu.
And his idea of goodbye is catastrophic.
Understatement.
The historical sources describe it as an intentional upending of agricultural and sacred order. He destroys the ridges of Amaterasu's rice paddies and fills her irrigation ditches. He defecates in her sacred palace.
And it culminates in him tearing the skin off a piebald horse, flaying it backwards, which is just a horrifying detail, and dropping the bloody carcass through the roof of Amaterasu's sacred weaving hall.
Yeah, it's intense.
A weaver is so shocked, she strikes herself with a shuttle and dies. This goes beyond a sibling rivalry. It's basically cosmic terrorism.
It is. And Amaterasu's reaction is to withdraw entirely. Terrified, she seals herself inside the heavenly rock cave.
Taking the sun with her.
Exactly. Since she is the literal embodiment of the sun, the entire universe is instantly plunged into perpetual darkness. The myriad gods are thrown into a complete panic. They gather in the riverbed of heaven to devise a plan to lure her out because, the world cannot function without the sun.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the solution the gods come up with involves 3 very specific items that actually change the course of Japanese history.
Yes.
First, they forge an intricate bronze mirror. Second, they craft a string of curved, comma-shaped jewels. Then, they throw a massive festival outside the cave.
Because they need to spark Amaterasu's curiosity. So the goddess Uzume steps onto an overturned tub and begins a frenzied, divinely inspired dance.
The striptease.
Right, she exposes herself, dancing wildly, and the 800 myriad gods erupt into uproarious laughter. The text says, the sound shakes the very foundation of heaven.
So Amaterasu is sitting in the pitch-black cave, utterly confused. She expects the world to be mourning her absence, right?
Yeah, she thinks they'd be devastated.
Instead, it's a party. She cracks the stone door open just a sliver and asks how they can be rejoicing. Uzume replies that they are celebrating a deity even more glorious than her.
And at that exact moment, the gods thrust the newly forged bronze mirror directly in front of her face.
Wow.
Amaterasu had never seen her own reflection before. Dazzled by the brilliant figure in the mirror, she steps further out of the cave. A powerful god waiting by the door grabs her arm, pulls her completely out, and a rope is drawn across the entrance behind her. The sun is restored to the world.
Okay, so Amaterasu is back, but Susanoo is permanently exiled to Earth down in the land of Izumo, and surprisingly, the cosmic terrorist gets a redemption arc.
He really does.
He finds an elderly couple weeping because a monstrous serpent, Yamato no Orochi, this beast with 8 heads and 8 tails, is coming to eat their last surviving daughter.
Yeah.
Susanoo sets a trap. He brews 8 massive vats of highly refined liquor.
A classic trick.
The serpent arrives, plunges its heads into the vats, and gets completely blackout drunk.
And once the creature is incapacitated, Susanoo draws his sword and hacks it to pieces, turning the local river red. But as he cuts through the middle tail, his blade strikes something hard and chips.
Okay.
He cuts the flesh away and discovers a magnificent sword lodged inside the serpent's tail. This is the Kusanagi sword. He presents it to Amaterasu as an offering of reconciliation.
Let's look at the inventory we just gathered from these wild stories. A mirror from the cave, the curved jewels worn during the dance, and a sword pulled from a drunk dragon. Why does the Kojiki dedicate so much precise detail to these 3 specific items?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the true brilliance is that this is where the Kojiki operates as an unforgeable deed of ownership.
Right.
Those 3 items, the mirror, the jewel, and the sword, are the 3 sacred treasures of Japan. They are real, physical artifacts. To this day, they represent the ultimate, indisputable proof of the emperor's authority. The imperial family's possession of them is what makes an emperor legitimate.
It's the ancient equivalent of the nuclear launch codes. You can claim you're the leader, but if you don't have the briefcase, no one believes you.
Precisely. And in 8th century Japan, rival clans could theoretically amass more wealth or a larger army than the Yamato emperor, but they couldn't acquire the sacred treasures.
Because the gods gave them to the emperor's family.
Exactly. By writing a state-sponsored history that explains exactly how these artifacts were forged by the gods and given directly to the emperor's ancestors, the imperial court created a physical monopoly on divine authority. You literally can't argue with the person holding the sun goddess's mirror.
But holding the artifacts in heaven isn't enough, right? The imperial court needed a narrative that explained how Amaterasu's divine power actually made its way down to the dirt and mud of Japan.
Right. So Amaterasu looks down at the chaotic earth and decrees that her descendants should rule it. She sends her grandson, Ninigi, down from the heavens to govern, granting him the 3 sacred treasures to take with him.
And Ninigi arrives on Earth and immediately encounters a breathtakingly beautiful woman named Princess blossoming brilliantly, like the flowers of the trees.
Quite the name.
It is. He asks her father for her hand in marriage. The father is thrilled by this celestial alliance, but he insists on a package deal.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He offers the beautiful blossom princess, but Ninigi must also marry her older sister, Princess Long, as the rocks. The catch is that the rock princess is, well, extraordinarily ugly.
And it is a classic folklore test of character, one that appears in mythologies worldwide.
And Ninigi fails it spectacularly.
He really does.
He takes one look at the rock princess, refuses her entirely, and sends her back. He only marries the beautiful blossom princess. The father is insulted and reveals the hidden stakes of the arrangement.
The fine print.
The fine print. He explains that if Ninigi had accepted the rock princess, the lives of his descendants would have been eternal, enduring forever like stone. But because he only chose the fleeting beauty of the blossom princess, the lives of his descendants will be as fragile and brief as cherry blossoms.
It's a very poetic curse.
It is. But so, what does this all mean? If you are an imperial scribe writing propaganda to make your emperor look like an infallible divine being, why include a story where his direct ancestor makes a shallow, embarrassing mistake that ruins immortality for everyone?
This is perhaps the most brilliant political maneuver in the entire text.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Al-Samaro and the imperial court had a glaring PR problem they could not ignore. If the emperor is the literal descendant of the eternal sun goddess, why does he get sick?
Oh.
Why does he age? And most importantly, why does he die just like the peasants working in the fields?
Ah, they needed a theological loophole.
Exactly. This myth provides a flawless justification. It acknowledges the biological mortality of the emperors, blaming it on a tragic, localized choice made during the earthly transition while keeping their divine celestial bloodline completely intact.
That's incredibly smart.
They are living gods, possessing the sacred treasures, but they suffer physical death strictly because of the cherry blossom curse. It answers the skeptics without yielding an inch of divine authority.
With that mortality loophole closed, the text shifts gears entirely. The Kojiki moves from Volume 1, which is pure mythology, into Volumes 2 and 3, which read a lot more like historical chronicles.
Very different tone.
Yeah, we follow Inigi's descendants down to Emperor Jimmu, who the text claims is the legendary first emperor of Japan, ascending the throne in 660 BC.
Right, and the transition from Volume 1 to the later volumes where it presents the shift from divine creation to brutal, earthly state building. We get extensive accounts of figures like Yamato Takeru, a warrior prince sent by his father to pacify rival tribes across the archipelago.
So no more magic spears.
Exactly. The narrative abandons the magical realms of heaven and focuses on military conquests, political marriages, and, subjugating rebellions.
Our sources point out that this is where the Kojiki starts looking less like a holy book and more like a massive cosmic corporate org chart.
That's exactly what it is.
It dedicates pages upon pages to tracing the genealogies of almost every minor deity mentioned earlier, drawing direct lines from those gods to real existing aristocratic families in 8th century Japan.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, look at the political reality of the 700s AD. The Yamato court was surrounded by powerful, rival, aristocratic families. Instead of just fighting them, the compilers of the Kojiki did something much more permanent.
What did they do?
They gathered the local founding myths and regional gods of all these subjugated or rival clans, and they literally wrote them into the Kojiki as subordinate deities.
Oh, wow. So they assimilated their rivals' gods into, like, middle management.
Precisely. They tied the entire nobility into this shared, inescapable divine ecosystem. The text explicitly dictates to these powerful families, look at the official history. Your ancestor was a minor deity who owed loyalty to our ancestor, Amaterasu, back in the age of the gods.
Therefore, you owe us loyalty now.
Exactly. You inherently owe loyalty to the current imperial family right now. It wasn't just elevating the emperor, it was fundamentally locking every other clan into a subservient position that they couldn't contest.
Because to rebel against the Yamato state wasn't just treason.
No, it was a violation of the cosmic order itself.
Man. So let's look at the incredible journey we've mapped out today. We started with a jeweled spear churning the ocean, establishing a patriarchal rule of law. We saw a sun goddess lured out of a cave with a mirror, creating the physical launch codes of imperial power.
Right.
We watched a superficial marriage choice expertly explain away the mortality of living gods. And it all culminated in a meticulously crafted genealogy that legally bound rival factions to the throne.
It really forces you to reevaluate how history is constructed.
Absolutely.
The Kojiki is a stark reminder that the line between sacred myth and political propaganda is entirely dependent on who is holding the pen.
So true.
It invites you to look at the foundational stories, the accepted myths, and the historical narratives of your own culture, and ask yourself, what assumed truths or fundamental social hierarchies were actually just penned by a victor trying to permanently secure their power?
Such a powerful lens to view history through. The next time you find yourself reading an ancient myth, pay close attention to the fine print. You might just be reading someone's property deed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the stories you're told, and we will catch you next time.